Hello, this is Off the Cuff with T and Me. I'm T, that's me, also known as Carol. We're here today because we're going to open up some discussion around uh, social media, devices, the protection of the passwords, the vulnerability of all the stuff that we share out into the world, and how that can sometimes go sideways. My friend Carol has just had a really negative experience in the last week of having her accounts infiltrated by we don't know who. And in this day and age, we don't have the ability to call someone and speak to someone directly in customer service land. So it's all frequently asked questions and messages with AI robots, which can be quite frustrating because when we're talking to a real person, maybe we can get our point across. And when we're just going with the frequently asked questions and or the AI responses, it could be super frustrating. So I'm going to hand the floor over to Carol, and she's going to share her experience, the do's, the don'ts, the how we're vulnerable, and what we can do about it. Go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, thanks, Tanya. It has been the week from hell. My identity has been stolen, and I've heard about this for years. I mean, I just didn't think that I was a person who would fall for it, or that I was gullible, or, I thought I was smarter than this. I really did think I was smarter than this. And the way that I did eventually figure out how they gained access, and I'm going to share this with you. I'm going to go through this with you because I think that this could impact everybody, and especially as we're leaning more and more into this digital world and leaning more and more into this AI. I mean, chat AI is out there on friggin' everything right now. So this is actually not a lot of fun. Um, I've been like on the brink of breakdown. It has consumed almost 4 days of my time. Um, and I'm still not, I still don't know for sure if I beat this one, right? Because I'm not a technical person. I'm just a layman who knows how to use a computer and turn on Zoom. Really, I mean, that is kind of where my limits are when it comes to this. So my nose is so itchy. Sorry about that. And I know this needs to be talked about. I know people think that I thought I was fine. I thought I was fine. Now there was these niggling things. There was these things that my gut has been telling me for a while, like my iPhone, right? I use iPhone, and it had like, oh, a little warning on my passwords list. I had all of my passwords saved in my phone. I had passwords saved on my computer. I had warnings saying, hey, you've reused this password. Recommend change it. And I'm like, 3, 4 years go by and I'm still ignoring this message. Guess what, folks? Don't ignore the message. And don't make them easy to remember, and don't store them in your phone. That's like the number one thing. I thought people were crazy. I thought I was crazy not listening to it at the time. Anyway, so this is what happened. I was on Facebook. I was logged into my Facebook account. I got a notification inside my Facebook account, and it looked pretty real. I'm going to show you what it looked like. This is what I got. This is referring to RE Squared Productions Facebook page.
It didn't come up yet.
Oh. Oh. Oh, shoot. Okay, well, that's because I'm just looking at it and haven't actually shared my screen yet.
Hey,
Oh my goodness, there we go. So
voila, here it is.
this is actually what came inside my Facebook. Like, this isn't an email that I got. This actually was a notification inside Facebook. So our page, our E Squared page, had been reported 7 times, and they thought we were a fake account. This was what I read. I took a screenshot, I sent it to Tanya, and I said, hey, they're asking me for a copy of my driver's license. I don't feel really good about doing this, but I also don't want to lose our page. And I thought, well, if I don't confirm this in the next 24 hours, our page could be permanently disabled. Well, I didn't want that. And I didn't think to actually Google it. What did I do? Followed the instructions. Sent them a copy of my driver's license. They had a copy of my driver's license. My driver's license in British Columbia has our personal health number, It has our address. It's got the actual driver's license number. And if I can't remember if I sent them both sides, but it also would have had my serial number, right? So now somebody's got two forms of ID on me. Plus they know where I live.
Frightening.
Yeah,
Because this message actually looks very authentic,
it
right?
does. It
Very
totally
real
does.
of an authority, the meta support team. Who would think that someone else could replicate a message like that internally?
Yeah,
It's
how
a
does
different
that work?
version of getting an email or a different message on some other network, but to have that be internal inside your Facebook is quite frightening.
It was. It was, and I didn't think anything of it, and I never heard anything. I just remember the message. Once I had done that, it says, "We'll keep this on file for 30 days, and then it'll be permanently deleted." So I was like, okay. I still didn't feel very good about it, and then I completely forgot about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, like 4 weeks or 6 weeks or something goes by, and I I started getting. It was a Saturday morning. It was just over a week ago. I started getting emails on one of my major banks. I bank at multiple institutions, which in hindsight is a very good choice. Don't have all your eggs in one basket. So it was at a bank that I did not have most of my money, fortunately, but I did have a couple of joint accounts in there. One, with there was access to money in those accounts. So I got an email. Your username or password has been changed. Followed up by another email. Your username or password has been changed. So now they've changed my username and they've changed my password. Then they changed my phone number. They changed my email address. I tried to log in. I could not log in. I called the bank. They said, yeah, so they've transferred $1,000 out of this account over to this account, but we caught on to it in time that they didn't actually take the money out of the bank. So in this case, I'm really fortunate that no actual money was taken and that our bank was all over this as a fraud, a potential fraud. All of these changes, they must have some kind of metrics or something that they're looking at. However, these guys actually called and impersonated me. They tried to say I lost something or whatever they said to try to gain access to my accounts because they could see what was available, right? And now they have this ID. They've got my access number. They know what my online profile. They hijacked my entire online profile. So I was shut down. So it's Saturday. The banks weren't open. I had to wait till Monday. So Monday, the first thing I do, right? I start changing passwords on my emails and on my all of this on my online accounts. I start changing all of these things, right? Because that's what you would do. And I thought, okay, fine, that's it. I kind of thought that was the extent of it. So I went into the branch on the Monday morning, and they said that your account is flagged as hot. They were even looking at me sideways, even with all of my identification. They're still looking at me like I'm the criminal here, which is fine. They're doing their job. I don't mind that. And they said, well, you are not going to have access to your online banking again until you get your equipment cleaned. So any device that you would have logged into our system with, you need it cleaned. So you can take it to Staples or Source or something like that, or you can do a factory reset. Well, I opted to do a factory reset because I'm like, I don't even want it cleaned. I just want it reset. So I did that. And I before I did that, though, I wrote down all my passwords on a piece of paper with a pen, the good old fashioned way. And like I forgot how do we do this, right? I had like 3 pages of passwords that I'd saved in my account in my on my phone. And you know how many times some of those same combinations of email and passwords were the same? Just I've been taking my safety online for granted, folks. Like this was been a tremendous learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
Now I had my photos and I had my notes and I had all of these things that were on my phone, but I was over my limit for gigabytes on my Apple ID or whatever the cloud was. But I could see on my computer that I thought I downloaded everything. Anyways, when I did the reset, I lost everything.
Mm.
I lost it. I lost all that stuff. Or so I thought. then I went back to the bank on Wednesday and I'm like, okay, I've done everything. It was still a whole bunch of security hoops. It was about 2 hours of, yeah, I am who I say I am, and here we go again. So we got online, and actually I've got a document here. Yeah, no, I'll tell you the when that so that's what happened on Wednesday. So Monday I went to the bank the first time. Wednesday I went to the bank the second time. And so I did all this. We changed my online access, security questions, added in some two-step authentication, all of those things that would be important. I think that would be done, right? Okay, great. Done.
No.
No. No, not at all. Not even close. From an emotional place, folks, this was really hard. Every time, like trying to sleep at night, because that's when like these folks were working obviously somewhere else in the world, because these things were happening when I was sleeping.
Right.
And so every moment that I'd wake up, I was checking my phone. Are they accessing this? Are they checking this? Check my balance. Like I've been living in this like crazy frenzy, worrying about what more they're going to be able to do. So Thursday I had a really, really rough emotional day, and then started figuring out some other things. I Thursday, what happened? I can't remember exactly what happened, but it prompted me to actually make a phone call because I could see that there was still somebody in my stuff. Like there was still somebody in the background. I don't know how to explain it, but I could see that there was something happening that just wasn't right. I had we have like a router, and I have like a little online thing, and it was showing me that there was somebody else logged in on my network, on my Wi-Fi, and I started to lose it completely. So I phoned the RCMP because I was like, this is obviously a little bit more serious and way over my head. So I called the RCMP, and the RCMP said that because no money was actually stolen, no money was actually removed from my account, there was nothing they could do. So they referred me to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. And I'm going to share my screen again here because I've kind of tried to outline a little bit of this, and I'm going to include this in the video so that you can take a look at all of this once this video is upline. You'll see it down in the comments below. So I did call the bank right away. That was what I did do, and I didn't lose money, but there was an attempt to do so. So I did call the police non-emergency line. They told me to call the anti-fraud center, which I did. I've got the number here. These again will all be available to you down below.
And this is in Canada, correct?
This is in Canada only. Unfortunately, I don't know how this works in the USA. And I did go back to the bank to prove my identity and to see what their requirements were. So that rewinding back to like having to reset my phone and all the devices. So on Thursday last week, I ended up calling the credit bureaus. There's Equifax's number, TransUnion number, and the number I have recorded here, folks, is the number that you call. That's different than the number than what the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center actually supplied me. I'm not sure where that came in. And then you've got to call your Canada Revenue Agencies and put a restriction on there. You got to alert everybody that you can possibly think of that there's fraud going on related to you. Because if something were to happen and you've made this note on your file, then it's a little bit easier for you to not be responsible for some of the financial burden if that were to come.
And
so
just
there are
going back to something that you said to me was at the bank level.
They never said any of this.
Which is so interesting to me because the feedback was they deal with this every single day.
$6 billion last year.
Wow.
Yeah,
let's take a moment for that. $6 billion in theft.
Yeah. So if you ever wonder where those service fees go to,
yeah.
That's what I was wondering. Where do all these service fees go to? Oh yeah, you're standing here for an hour helping me that isn't actually generating income for the bank. So that's where it goes. This is crazy. And both banks, I went to 2 different branches, and both branches said they see this every single day. Every single day. And I live in a pretty small community. This happens every single day in my very small community.
Which People is frightening because that's just amplified into the world, right? Yeah. Like, and how they have dedicated teams.
Yeah, They
for
do.
fraud, right? Dedicated teams of people. And I have a friend who works in bank security and said, like some of the smaller banks are dealing with fraud on a regular basis, but they're dealing with sex trafficking and human trafficking. Like those kinds of things happen within the fraudulent experiences. So it isn't just the one thing, it's amplified
Mhm.
in so many ways. And the criminal activity um, has gained a lot of ground with the internet that the policing and the guidelines and everything else weren't ready for, right? So we're basically paying catch up at this point in time is how it feels.
Yeah, and with AI, I mean AI learning from itself, it's actually on a previous episode of Off the Cuff, I'm pretty sure Tanya and I talked about fear and how I'd spent most of my life in fear, and I feel like the last couple of years I spent most of my time climbing up and out from fear. And um
Mhm.
yeah, so that's no longer the case now, this is like violation in a way that I never ever dreamed possible. And, this was like Jetsons kind of stuff when I was 6 years old. This was something way far outside of me.
Yeah.
Um,
And here it is. The reality is here it is, right? And so thank you for your vulnerability around this. I can see your sadness and I acknowledge the fact that this was very traumatic. And like you said, it happens every single day. So you're not the only one traumatized. I'd like to
no,
circle back to this place of your router in your physical home
yeah,
had someone else lurking in it,
yeah.
right? I used to watch CSI um, CSI cyber CSI, and it's amazing because at that point in time I started covering my camera and really sort of comprehending, although it was a sensationalized US TV, there was some clout to it, right? There was some validity to the fact that we are very vulnerable and we invite these criminals literally into our homes. And so someone was logged into your device. What did you have to do about that piece?
Uh, I actually I had to call our internet provider and have them reset it. So we reset the network and changed the password to something different. But I missed a really important thing here. Um, Last Thursday, that was the day that I thought like on the Wednesday I'd gone back to the bank and I kind of thought we were over that hump. And on Thursday morning, I was sitting checking everything again, and I was in Facebook, and my Facebook memories had come up, and I watched the video of my mom in the hospital, and it's my favorite memory of my mom because it was her living her joy. And little did I know that would be the last time I would watch that video. That morning, those guys that hacked into Facebook actually deleted my Facebook account. And this whole time, when I thought I'd lost everything on my computer and all that stuff, I thought, well, at least I have Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I didn't. And the reason that I didn't was because they needed to delete that account so that we couldn't trace them back to that message. I don't know how that could happen, but um, I'll tell you how I learned that later. This has been a really long week. It's
Mhm.
been jam packed for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, and this is just a bit of money. I would have been happy to let them have a little bit of money to keep some of those memories. Honestly, it's been a great opportunity for me to kind of look in the mirror and see what actually matters here. And certainly, it isn't money.
Mhm.
I would have happily. No, I'm not saying that I want to do this again ever. I do not. I never want to do this. But those memories are irreplaceable.
Yeah, and
Um,
the sting of that, right? The reality of that situation. And I think like most people, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, whatever, like there seems to be this ever expanding need for more social media, which doesn't make sense to me. But here we are where we give so much of our information away. And for me, I've been a member of Facebook since 2007. So my entire life is on there. And I'm
yeah,
not the only one, right? My kids bug me because they're like, well, get with the times, get with a new program. You're on Facebook. That's old people social media. I'm an old person. Okay. So I give into that. But again, I share all kinds of things pictures, posts, all kinds of things that have some level of meaning to me, obviously, or I wouldn't be sharing them. And yet, if that entire thing was to be wiped out, the loss is quite paramount. Like, it's a huge, big deal. And like you said, that video only existed in that one place. And we take for granted that it's going to be available the next time we go to look at it, whatever that is for us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did reach out to a couple of members of my family, and it turns out that my aunt thinks that she might have a video. I don't know if it's that video,
Right.
but hasn't been able to share it because of the file size. So I'm hopeful that I'll get something back. But in that moment, I was absolutely gutted. It was I didn't know that that would be the last time I would see my mom like in person on the screen like that, right? And interestingly, a few weeks prior to that, I'd actually written down all of those words. So I feel like the universe was kind of preparing me for this in some ways, just to give me that last little moment. So there have been trickles of light that have come through all of this, and I've done a tremendous amount of learning. And I've actually been quite compassionate with myself.
Okay.
Typically in the past on something like this, like I would pull out that stick and start beating myself up for like, how could I do this? What an idiot I am. How stupid could I be? Like, you guys could imagine all of the possible things that I could be asking myself, or that you could be asking yourself about how did you get to this place?
Yeah, is that relatable to anyone else? Because it's certainly
Right?
relatable to me, right? That idea of I should have known better, I should have done something better, I did something wrong, and it's why that we're doing this video so that we can bring awareness to the fact that we're all vulnerable.
We are.
Right? We are all vulnerable, and loss, that feeling of violation, it's
Yeah,
real.
it
The
is.
physical, biology, physiology forced experience. So not to take
Well,
any.
it does. And T, you're right. I mean, it also like the experience of this is actually connecting me to trauma from the past. Like, so it's compounded. Like, this experience is compounding all of those previous triggers that where I felt violated, where I felt like I've had to look over my shoulder, where I'm up worrying all night, not knowing what tomorrow is going to bring. This is not a new feeling for me.
No.
However, the last 2 years, I've spent a long time crawling out from under that rock of fear.
Yeah.
And I feel like this has been a big setback for me.
Well,
And
and
I'm being
including,
honest with myself about it. Like, I'm not gonna
yeah,
pretend that I'm fucking okay, because I'm not fucking okay.
I
I
hear you.
am mad. I am
Yeah.
fucking angry. I am crazy. I am sad. I'm everything. Pardon my language, folks, but this is me. This is uncensored me. This has been a journey that I don't want anybody going through. So if
Yeah.
you're still listening, thank you,
Yeah.
and thank yourself, because I know we're going to be rattling on here for a little while longer to get to the end of what I'm recommending, because learn from my mistake. Learn from my mistake.
I just want to speak to the fact that I'm honoring the fact that your family system is actually quite conditioned in default to worry.
Mhm.
Fear was a very big component of how you grew up.
It was.
Like, I remember sitting in your basement in the living room downstairs, and a siren went by, and your mom went and like got all up in herself and was like, somebody's hurt, and it has to be somebody that I know. And it was the first time that I ever remember thinking, wow, like, I mean, I just never ever associated a siren with anything that I needed to be concerned about, but it definitely impacted me. So knowing the impact that all of these conditioned responses and default patterns have, and knowing the work that you have done to try and eliminate and or reset some of those default patterns, and then find yourself thrown back into where you're waking up, you're rigid and scared, and that you're incessant. OCD has become a thing where you're incessantly checking to make sure that you're okay. And so
And it ties into these beliefs, these old beliefs that don't work for me. Like, the world isn't safe. Like, the world is a scary place. People are jerks, right? Like, it
and I'm at
it's a
risk.
and I'm not feeling safe. Who
Yeah.
doesn't want to like, safety has been a huge thing for me. um Anyways, so thanks for listening, folks, and putting up with some of these things. um
You're getting dinged.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go back to just sharing this document just to try to wrap this up here. Can you see this now?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just keep talking. So yeah, definitely call the credit bureau. So what Equifax does actually is they have a 6-year protection on my credit bureau and a lifetime now on my social insurance number.
Wow.
So Equifax was really great. TransUnion just tried to sell me some kind of protection package
Of
and
course.
and credit monitoring. I have been doing credit monitoring. That is something that I do recommend if you're not on a credit monitoring program. There are a variety of them out there. TransUnion sells one. There are some like aftermarket kinds of ones, if you will. I will not disclose who I'm using, but there are lots. So you can just search that for yourselves, folks. And after I did call the credit bureaus, I did get an alert on my monitoring system saying, "Hey, we've noticed that there's been a fraud alert added to your file.
Mm,
If this was you, great. If it wasn't you, then
let
please
us know.
call." So the system does work. I did call Canada Revenue Agency and I just let them know that my identity has been stolen. They have enough information that could potentially get access to my CRA information. So as a result of that communication, they did apply a whole bunch of restrictions to my CRA account until I pull those off. And I'll have to do that in a variety of ways. This is probably going to be a bit of a nightmare for me kind of going forward. But the restrictions now include that I can't update literally any personal information online or over the phone.
Yeah.
Anything that I need to do now has to be done by mail or potentially in person.
Wow.
I cannot authorize a new representative to complete taxes. So if I wanted to go to a new, like if I wanted to go to H&R Block now and go and file my taxes, I wouldn't be able to assign them as an authority. Unfortunately, I'd have to send in a request to Canada Revenue Agency by mail so that they can actually add that company to my file, my folder. I also created a verbal password. So it's important to remember what that verbal password is. I did create a verbal password for one of the banks that I deal with, and when I called them back, I was in such a frenzy the day that I created it that I couldn't remember what it was, and it actually created more layers of stuff, which is, I mean, it's good. Again, I'm not complaining because it was my bad, but now I've got a book that I've got everything in. So, and that's what I've done is I've literally written down everybody I've called, the phone number I've called, who I spoke to, what date it was. I'm just taking care of all of the details right now. So both RBC and the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center said to factory reset the phone and other devices, and then go back to the bank and reset and change all your online information and security questions. And this was supposed to solve it. This is not what happened at all.
Right.
So what I actually had to do was I did reset my computer and I reset my iPhone 13. I changed all of my online passwords and access. I increased my security. And then I eventually had to cancel my driver's license. I didn't even think of that on Monday. I didn't even think about the fact that they had that and that might be something that they could use against me. So all of these things, like all these things cost money too, right? Like there's some things. Anyways, so I did that and I must have changed passwords. I think I've changed passwords like a half a dozen times because I just kept feeling like somebody was still in my stuff. So it didn't work. What they told me to do just didn't work. I called TELUS. I called my internet provider. My internet provider was actually the one that said, you need to go buy a new phone. Because they have your serial. There's a whatever serial number that's in there, the IMEI or whatever it's called in there. It goes with you for life, like as long as you have the phone. So even with a factory reset, it's not going to keep them out. What?
Yeah, what?
Now, unfortunately, I was like 3 months away from the end of my contract. So I was able to get out of my contract for a pretty low price. And the guy at the store, I said, how often do you see this? What do you think he said?
Every day.
Every day.
Yeah, that's pretty profound. Again, you live in a small community. So for somebody to be dealing with this on a daily basis means that none of us are actually safe until we create all of these safety features, right? And that some of us, if not all of us, are at risk of some kind for having our identity stolen, for having our account stolen.
Yeah.
And again, coming back to the idea that, back in the day, if something was taken, we used to be able to phone customer service and talk to a person. That does not exist anymore.
No.
Like, I have a Zoom account and I recently called in for an issue that was happening. My camera wouldn't turn on. And I used it in other apps, so I knew that it wasn't that. So I was calling to find out. And about 10 minutes in to this phone call, it says, you haven't paid enough for this account for this service. And I'm like, I have a full pro service. So how have I not paid enough for this account? I have an annual fee that I've paid so that I have access to a professional Zoom account. And even that didn't get me what I needed. So then I had to go to the frequently asked questions and go to the AI chat, which just seems so insane to me that we've got to a place where communication is so simple. I say that, and I don't really believe it. It's not really simple. It's more complicated. It feels it's way more
Well,
complicated.
yeah. Have you ever tried to return something on Amazon?
No, thankfully I have not.
or the AI that you're talking to, a lot of these online representatives are AI. They are bots.
Yeah.
And you can't just get what you need. You go through, well, does this answer your question? No, it doesn't for the 30th time. Can you please take me where I want to go?
No.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
true.
whereas if you were talking to a human being, it might be able to, there's a level of comprehension that could be gotten to by the critical thinking, by the conversation, by the nuances, the tones, those kinds of things. And so is this communication better in this world that we're living in with all of these risks? All of these risks, and we think we're in our own home. What do you mean, what risk? I'm just doing my thing. But the problem is, if someone's in your router, which comes from an outside source, so it's very possible that it can get broken into, right? And I think about, like, again, coming back to cyber CSI and watching, people plug things in at airports and how hackers
Shared
can
public
those things,
Wi-Fi?
right?
Oh gosh.
And I used to do it all the time because I was like, oh, I'll just waste your Wi-Fi and not my own. But I'm like, no, protect yourself at all costs. Keep your phone locked down. And like you said, be careful. Be very careful.
Well, see, it even comes down to, like, if somebody does gain access to your phone, all of the apps we have on there pretty much tells them everything they need to know. Oh, you bank here, here, and here.
Yeah.
Oh, I see your internet provider is this guy. I see you've got, like, anything that they ever want to know is all on our phones.
Yeah.
Like, this is dangerous. And the more that we're moving as a world into digital identification, the harder it's going to be to keep this all safe.
Absolutely.
And this has been a tremendous eye-opener. So let me just go back to just finishing up some of the steps I did to eventually and hopefully finally protect myself, because this is still really new. So I did buy a new phone. I had to create a new Apple ID. So that was a new thing. Nobody told me that, guys. You can't just go and buy a new phone. It didn't matter if I reset it. They had my EMI, whatever that serial number is. Plus, they had my Apple ID. Literally everything was on my Apple ID.
Yeah.
So I was able to, I had like a 5-year-old backup on my Apple ID. So I was able to download older pictures and some of my notes and my contacts. Those are the only things I was able to do. I burned them onto a stick.
Wow.
And that was how I was able to do those little tiny things that I was able to hold on to. I had to reinstall my VPN. I had a VPN. I didn't have it on all the time. Somehow it kept turning off. This was going back to this Wi-Fi issue. I was having problems connecting to my Wi-Fi. I'm like, what is happening with my Wi-Fi? And it was almost like I was getting kicked out. Somebody was
Wi-Fi
running. So that's when I had to reset that. So I changed all my online passwords and access after I got a new phone, after my new Apple ID, and installed my VPN. We reset the modem and routers with the new network name and password. I had to create and move all of that sensitive information that was being accessed by that old Apple ID email address. I've been using that email address for, I don't know, 15, 20 years. I don't know. It's been forever. So that pretty much has gone with me for everything. So I recommend everybody Proton Mail. There may be some other ones that are like Proton Mail. These are encrypted emails. And so what happens if somebody tries to access your email account and they are asking for a password reset, Proton Mail actually encrypts all of the previous messages so that you can't actually read anything. So there is some level of protection. You end up losing stuff, but at least somebody can't get what they're looking for.
Right.
I changed all of my sensitive stuff, all online passwords that had anything to do with money and personal information with a two-step authentication. It is a pain in the ass. But you know what? I must have changed passwords a half a dozen times through all of this, if not more, for some things. The two-step authentication. There was security settings on my email server and my computer and my phone that had been toggled off. Like if you're on a Google account, if you use a Gmail email, you can log into your Google account. There's a security section in there, and you can see who's logged in.
Wow.
I had some iPhone 11 Pro Max logged into all my shit, folks.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah.
That's insane.
Out of Texas, but it was obviously routed through Texas. They must have had some kind of whatever. So checking your security systems and settings, like I've done this 100 times. I am like now I'm OCD, like Tanya said about this, because I just want to now stay on top of it. Eventually, I hope that I'm not going to have to feel this need to continue to check. But for right now, I am watching everything like a hawk.
Right.
Monitor your security. Make sure that there's no unauthorized. You can kick them out and change your password. These are my final two tips. Do not use passwords over and over again. Anybody who uses passwords repeatedly is at risk. And why? Because if they get into one of your accounts using that password, they're going to get into all of them, folks. This sounds simple. It sounds like a no-brainer, and it is a lot of work to change passwords. Do it anyway. And finally, don't store your sensitive passwords in your devices. Write it down. Good old-fashioned pen and paper. Have a book dedicated to all of your personal information. It isn't convenient. We live in this day and age of convenience where I can be in Timbuktu with my phone and transfer money anywhere in the world.
Yep.
I'm not doing that anymore.
Right. Yeah, we definitely need to take more care and consideration. Absolutely. And it sounds to me like, when it's out there with others, if this is happening every day, it means that someone is affected by this, right? But when it hits really close to home, when it's someone that we know and love, and or it's ourselves that are going through it, the feelings become very visceral. It's a very alive experience, right? The betrayal, the the feeling of being violated, and those feelings, like you said, create the resonance of these other feelings that maybe we've had throughout our lives, and then we're right back in it. And so I hope that everyone pays attention to what Carol shared today in our off the cuff around cybersecurity, and that you don't become another statistic on the daily event of criminal activity in the online world. This has been an important message from us in the off the cuff. I'm T, that's me, also known as Carol. Thank you so much for watching and listening. Subscribe to our channel. Leave your comments below. We'd love to hear from you.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.